The Zephyrians were different. In a galaxy full of strong, fast, and clever alien races, they stood out like a sore thumb. They weren't very big, only about as tall as a human child. Their skin was pale blue and so thin you could almost see through it. Their eyes were huge and dark, taking up most of their round faces. They didn't have any hair, and their arms and legs were long and skinny. But it wasn't just how they looked that made them different. The Zephyrians weren't good at fighting. They couldn't run very fast or lift heavy things. They didn't even have very sharp minds compared to other aliens. In a galaxy where being tough and smart was everything, the Zephyrians were seen as weak and useless. For thousands of years, the Zephyrians lived on their home planet, Zephyria. It was a beautiful world with tall purple trees and soft pink grass. The air was always warm and smelled sweet. But one day, everything changed. Their sun started to die, getting bigger and hotter. Soon, Zephyria would be too hot for anyone to live on. The Zephyrians knew they had to leave their home. They built big ships to travel through space, hoping to find a new place to live. They visited many planets, meeting all sorts of alien races, but no one wanted to help them. On the planet Cronus, the big, muscular Chronosians laughed at the Zephyrians. "You're too weak," they said. "You can't live here. You'd never survive." The Zephyrians tried the planet Intellum next. The Intellites had huge brains and could solve any puzzle in seconds. They looked at the Zephyrians and shook their heads. "You're not smart enough," they said. "You'd only hold us back." Everywhere they went, it was the same story. The Velocians said the Zephyrians were too slow. The Titanians said they were too small. The Psychons said their minds were too simple. No one wanted the Zephyrians around. Months turned into years as the Zephyrians searched for a new home. Their ships were getting old and starting to break down. Food and water were running low. The Zephyrians were tired and scared. Some of them started to think maybe the other aliens were right. Maybe they were too weak to survive in this tough galaxy. But their leaders didn't give up. "We may not be the strongest or the smartest," they told their people, "but we are kind. We care for each other. That has to count for something." So they kept searching. They flew to the edges of the galaxy, to places no one else wanted to go. They visited hundreds of planets, but none of them were right. Some were too hot, others too cold. Some had air the Zephyrians couldn't breathe. Others had dangerous animals or plants. Just when things seemed hopeless, they found a small solar system no one had paid much attention to before. It had a few planets circling the yellow star. One of those planets was blue and green, with white clouds swirling over its surface. As they got closer, the Zephyrians could hardly believe their eyes. The planet looked perfect. It had oceans and land, mountains and plains. The air was just right for them to breathe. And best of all, it already had life on it. The Zephyrians watched the planet carefully. They saw cities and roads, farms and factories. They saw vehicles moving on the ground and flying through the air. And they saw the creatures who had built it all, beings that walked on two legs and came in many different colors. Humans, the Zephyrians whispered to each other. They had heard stories about humans, but most aliens didn't pay them much attention. Humans weren't the strongest or the smartest in the galaxy. They were somewhere in the middle, not special enough for most aliens to care about. But to the Zephyrians, this planet, Earth, looked like paradise. It was their last hope. If the humans turned them away, they had nowhere else to go. With fear and hope in their hearts, the Zephyrians prepared to make contact with Earth. They didn't know it yet, but this moment would change not just their fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. The Zephyrian ships approached Earth slowly. They didn't want to scare the humans. As they got closer, they saw something strange. Thousands of human machines were floating in space around the planet. The Zephyrians realized these were satellites used for communication and watching the stars. Suddenly, all those satellites turned to look at the Zephyrian ships. The aliens knew they had been spotted. On Earth, It was just another Tuesday morning. People were going to work, kids were in school, and life was normal. Then, every TV, radio, and phone started beeping with the same message. We are not alone. At first, many people thought it was a joke, but when they looked up at the sky, they saw the Zephyrian ships. They were beautiful, shaped like giant silver leaves, shimmering in the sunlight. The world's leaders quickly met to decide what to do. Some wanted to send military planes to meet the aliens. Others thought that might seem unfriendly. In the end, they decided to send a message of peace. Welcome to Earth, the message said. We come in peace and hope you do too. Please tell us why you're here. The Zephyrians were overjoyed. This was the first time any aliens had welcomed them. They sent back a message explaining who they were and why they had come. As the humans read the Zephyrian story, they felt sad and angry. How could the other aliens be so mean? Sure, the Zephyrians looked different, but that was no reason to treat them badly. The human leaders talked again. Some were worried about letting aliens live on Earth. What if they brought diseases? What if they used up Earth's resources? But most humans felt differently. They remembered times in their own history when people were treated badly just for being different. They didn't want to make the same mistake. So, the humans made a big decision. They invited the Zephyrians to land and meet face to face. The Zephyrians chose a big field in a place called New York for their first landing. Thousands of people came to watch. There were also TV cameras, so millions more could see it on screens all over the world. When the ship's door opened, everyone held their breath. The first Zephyrian stepped out. He looked around nervously, his big eyes blinking in the bright sunlight. Then something amazing happened. A little human girl broke away from her parents and ran up to the Zephyrian. Everyone gasped, worried about what might happen, but the girl just smiled and held out her hand. "Hi," she said. "I'm Emily. Welcome to Earth." The Zephyrian looked at Emily's hand, confused. He didn't know what to do. But then he remembered seeing humans shake hands on the videos they had watched. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and shook Emily's hand. The crowd cheered. Suddenly, more people came forward to greet the Zephyrians. They shook hands, took pictures, and tried to talk to each other even though they didn't speak the same language. Over the next few days, more Zephyrian ships landed all over the world. Everywhere they went, humans welcomed them with open arms. People brought them food, gave them clothes, and offered them places to stay. The Zephyrians were amazed. They had spent so long being rejected that they couldn't believe how kind the humans were. They cried tears of joy, which surprised the humans because Zephyrian tears were bright purple. Of course, not everything was perfect. Some humans were scared of the aliens and didn't want them around. There were protests in some cities, but most people stood up for the Zephyrians, saying they deserved a chance. As the Zephyrians settled in, both they and the humans realized they had a lot to learn about each other. There were funny misunderstandings, like when the Zephyrians tried to eat cars because they thought they were giant fruits, or when humans tried to pet Zephyrians, not realizing their skin was super ticklish. But with each day, the two species grew closer. The Zephyrians had finally found a home, and the humans had made new friends from the stars. It was the beginning of a beautiful friendship that would change both their worlds forever. As weeks turned into months, the Zephyrians and humans worked hard to live together. It wasn't always easy, but both sides were determined to make it work. One of the biggest challenges was language. The Zephyrians spoke by making soft whistling sounds, which humans couldn't copy, and human languages were too rough for Zephyrian throats. So, clever people on both sides created a new language using hand signs and simple sounds both species could make. They called it Eartherian, and soon everyone was learning it. Finding homes for the Zephyrians was another big task. They couldn't live just anywhere because their skin was sensitive to strong sunlight. So, humans helped build special communities for them in cooler, shadier areas. These new towns had tall trees and special tinted domes to protect the Zephyrians. Food was tricky too. Zephyrians couldn't eat most Earth foods because their stomachs were different. At first, they had to eat bland nutrition packs from their ships. But human and Zephyrian scientists worked together to find Earth plants the aliens could eat. They discovered that Zephyrians loved seaweed and certain types of mushrooms. Soon, there were Zephyrian restaurants popping up in cities, serving things like seaweed burgers and mushroom shakes. The Zephyrians were eager to help their new human friends. They wanted to show they weren't useless, even if they weren't as strong or fast as other aliens. It turned out they had some surprising skills. For example, Zephyrians could see colors humans couldn't. This made them great at finding tiny flaws in computer chips and other electronic parts. Many tech companies started hiring Zephyrians, and soon Zephyrian Certified became a mark of top quality for electronics. Zephyrians were also fantastic gardeners. Their gentle touch and patience were perfect for taking care of delicate plants. They taught humans new ways to grow food using less water and no harmful chemicals. This helped solve food shortages in many parts of the world. But not everything was smooth sailing. Some humans were still scared of the aliens. There were a few sad incidents where Zephyrians were bullied or attacked. But each time this happened, many more humans stood up to protect their new neighbors. Slowly, even the most fearful people began to accept the Zephyrians. Schools faced new challenges too. Zephyrian children started attending human schools, but they learned differently. They didn't like sitting still for long periods and preferred to learn by doing things. This led to big changes in how schools taught, with more hands-on projects and outdoor lessons. Many human kids found they liked this new way of learning better too. As humans and Zephyrians got to know each other better, they discovered they had a lot in common. Both species loved music, even though Zephyrian songs sounded like wind chimes to human ears. They both enjoyed telling stories and watching the stars. And most importantly, they shared a deep desire for peace and friendship. 1 year after the Zephyrians arrived, the United Nations held a special ceremony. They officially welcomed the Zephyrians as citizens of Earth. It was a day of celebration all around the world. In every city, humans and Zephyrians danced, sang, and feasted together. During the ceremony, the Zephyrian leader spoke to the world. Using the new Eartherian language, he said, "We came to you weak and homeless. You gave us strength and a home. We will never forget your kindness. From this day on, Earth's problems are our problems. Earth's joys are our joys. We are one people now." His words brought tears to many eyes, human and Zephyrian alike. It felt like the beginning of a new era for both species. But far away in space, other alien races were watching Earth closely. Some were curious about this unusual friendship, others were worried. And a few were angry that the humans had welcomed the outcasts they had rejected. As night fell on the celebration, no one on Earth knew that their actions had set in motion events that would soon change the entire galaxy. 2 years after the Zephyrians arrived on Earth, both humans and aliens were surprised to discover some unexpected changes. It started when a group of scientists was studying Zephyrian biology. They noticed something odd. The aliens' bodies were getting stronger, their thin skin was becoming tougher, and their muscles were growing. At first, everyone thought it was because of Earth's gravity, which was stronger than their home planets. But then they found more changes. Zephyrian children born on Earth could see even more colors than their parents. Some adults started showing signs of telepathy, able to sense each other's feelings without speaking. It was as if Earth itself was helping the Zephyrians evolve. The humans were changing too. People who spent a lot of time with Zephyrians found they could hear higher sounds, almost like the aliens' whistle language. Some humans even started to see faint glows around living things, something only Zephyrians could do before. These changes scared some people. They worried that humans and Zephyrians might be changing each other in dangerous ways. But most saw it as exciting. It showed just how special the bond between the two species had become. As the Zephyrians grew stronger, they found new ways to help on Earth. Their newly tough skin let them work in harsh environments like deserts and Arctic regions. They helped build homes in places humans found hard to live. This solved housing problems in many crowded countries. The Zephyrians' growing telepathic abilities turned out to be very useful too. They could sense when natural disasters like earthquakes or storms were coming, often before machines could detect them. This helped save many lives. But the most amazing discovery came from an unlikely place, a kindergarten class in Japan. A human teacher noticed that her Zephyrian students could make small objects move without touching them. It was only tiny things like pencils or toys, but it was real telekinesis, moving things with the mind. News of this ability spread quickly. Scientists were amazed. Nothing like this had ever been seen before. They studied the Zephyrian children carefully and found that all of them had this power to some degree. As the children grew older, their telekinetic abilities got stronger. By the time they were teenagers, some could lift objects as heavy as cars. It wasn't just the young ones either. Adult Zephyrians started developing these powers too, though not as strongly as the children born on Earth. This discovery changed everything. Suddenly, the Zephyrians weren't seen as weak anymore. Their telekinetic powers made them unique in the galaxy. Humans were excited to have such special allies. The Zephyrians used their new abilities to help in all sorts of ways. They could move heavy things easily, making construction work much faster. They helped in hospitals, using their powers to perform delicate surgeries. Some even joined rescue teams, using telekinesis to lift rubble and save people trapped after accidents. But with great power came great responsibility. The human and Zephyrian leaders had to make strict rules about how these abilities could be used. They didn't want anyone to abuse these powers or use them to hurt others. Most Zephyrians were happy to follow these rules. They remembered how it felt to be outcasts and didn't want to scare their human friends. They were grateful for the welcome they had received on Earth and wanted to repay that kindness. As news of these changes spread across the galaxy, other alien races started to pay more attention to Earth. Some were curious and wanted to learn more. Others were worried that humans and Zephyrians together might become too powerful. One day, a huge ship appeared near the moon. It was bigger than any ship humans or Zephyrians had ever seen. A message came from the ship, asking to speak with Earth's leaders. It was the Galactic Council, the group that ruled most of the known galaxy. They had ignored Earth before, thinking it was unimportant. But now, they couldn't ignore it any longer. As the Council's ship came closer, humans and Zephyrians stood together, ready to face whatever came next. Their unexpected alliance was about to be tested in ways they never imagined. The Galactic Council's ship hovered over New York City, its massive shadow covering the entire island of Manhattan. Humans and Zephyrians alike stared up at the sky, a mix of fear and curiosity on their faces. World leaders gathered quickly in the United Nations building. The Zephyrian representatives joined them, their newly strengthened bodies standing tall next to their human allies. Together, they prepared to meet the Galactic Council. A beam of light appeared from the ship, and 5 alien beings materialized in the UN chamber. They were each from different species: a tall, muscular Chronosian, a big-brained Intellite, a lightning-fast Philosian, a giant Titanian, and a shimmering, ghost-like Psychon. The chamber fell silent as the council members looked around, their eyes lingering on the Zephyrians. The Chronosian spoke first, his voice deep and rumbling. "We have come to address the unusual situation on this planet." The human and Zephyrian leaders stepped forward. Earth's UN Secretary-General, a woman named Amara, spoke confidently. "Welcome to Earth. We're honored by your visit. How can we help you?" The council members exchanged glances. The Intellite replied, his large head pulsing slightly. "You've upset the balance of our galaxy. The Zephyrians were deemed unfit for advanced civilization. Yet you've not only sheltered them, but helped them evolve. This is unprecedented." Whispers filled the room. The Zephyrian leader, Zeph, moved forward. His voice was calm but firm. "With respect, Council members, your judgment of our people was wrong. The humans saw value in us when you did not. Together, we've grown stronger. The Velocian zipped around the room, moving so fast she was almost a blur. She stopped suddenly, facing the Earth leaders. But at what cost? Your humans are changing too. Soon, you may no longer be human. Amara stood her ground. We're still very much human. We're just evolving like all species do. The Zephyrians have helped us as much as we've helped them. The massive Titanian leaned down, his voice booming. You don't understand the dangers. Mixed species can lead to chaos, war. We've seen it before. A young human scientist named Ravi stepped forward. But it doesn't have to. Look at what we've achieved together. We've made medical breakthroughs, improved our technology, even learned to predict natural disasters. The Psychon floated forward, its body shimmering like starlight. When it spoke, the words seemed to appear directly in everyone's minds. The boy speaks truth. I sense great harmony between humans and Zephyrians. It is unexpected, but not unpleasant. The council members huddled together, speaking in low tones. The humans and Zephyrians waited anxiously. Finally, the Chronosian turned back to them. We need time to discuss this. We will return to our ship. But know this, if we decide your alliance is a threat to galactic stability, we have the power to end it. As the council members prepared to leave, a small commotion broke out at the back of the room. A young Zephyrian girl had slipped past security. She ran up to the council members, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. Before anyone could stop her, she reached out and touched the Chronosian's hand. Suddenly, a soft glow enveloped them both. The Chronosian's eyes widened in shock. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then the glow faded, and the girl stepped back. The Chronosian looked at her, then at the other council members, his voice softer than before. I felt what she felt. The gratitude, the love for this planet and its people. It's not just words. It's real. The other council members looked surprised. The Psychon floated closer to the girl, its shimmering form pulsing with curiosity. This is new. The Zephyrians never had such abilities before. Perhaps we were too hasty in our judgment. The council members looked at each other, then back at the Earth leaders. The Intellate spoke. We need to reconsider. This situation is more complex than we thought. We will return to our ship and discuss further. But perhaps there is more to learn here than we expected. As the council members disappeared in beams of light, humans and Zephyrians let out a collective breath. They had passed the first test, but they knew bigger challenges lay ahead. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. While the Galactic Council debated Earth's fate, a crisis erupted that would test the human-Zephyrian alliance like never before. It started with a distress call from a distant star system. A massive asteroid was heading towards a populated planet called Xenon. The Xenonites, a species known for their advanced technology, couldn't stop it. They needed help, fast. The Galactic Council was busy with Earth and ignored the call. But humans and Zephyrians heard it. They knew they had to act. In just 3 days, they put together a rescue mission. They called it Operation Cosmic Shield. The plan was to use a mix of human technology and Zephyrian telekinesis to divert the asteroid. A team of 50 humans and 50 Zephyrians boarded Earth's newest spaceship, the Hope. It was the fastest ship ever built, designed by human and Zephyrian engineers working together. As the Hope raced towards Xenon, the Galactic Council finally noticed. They were shocked. No one expected Earth to attempt such a dangerous mission. The journey to Xenon took 2 weeks. During that time, the team trained hard. The humans practiced using special suits that boosted their strength. The Zephyrians worked on combining their telekinetic powers. When they arrived at Xenon, they saw the asteroid. It was huge, bigger than they expected. The Xenonites watched nervously as the Earth ship approached. The plan was risky. The Zephyrians would use their powers to slow the asteroid. Then, human pilots would plant explosives at key points to break it into smaller pieces. Finally, the Zephyrians would push the pieces away from the planet. As they got into position, doubt crept in. Could they really do this? But there was no time for fear. The asteroid was getting closer every second. The Zephyrians went first. They floated in space, their minds focused on the massive rock. Slowly, very slowly, the asteroid began to slow down. Next, the human pilots flew in. They dodged around the asteroid, planting explosives with perfect accuracy. Years of video games had prepared them well for this task. But then, something went wrong. One of the explosives malfunctioned. It went off too soon, sending a human pilot spinning out of control. Without hesitation, a Zephyrian used his powers to grab the pilot and pull her to safety. This moment of teamwork inspired everyone. The humans quickly planted new explosives. When they were ready, they detonated them all at once. The asteroid split into dozens of smaller pieces. Now came the hardest part. The Zephyrians had to push all these pieces away from Xenon. They focused all their power, straining harder than they ever had before. The humans weren't idle. They used their ships to nudge the rocks, helping the Zephyrians. Every little bit helped. For hours, they worked tirelessly. Sweat poured down their faces. Their muscles ached. But slowly, piece by piece, they pushed the asteroid fragments away from Xenon. Finally, the last piece was deflected. Xenon was safe. Cheers erupted from the Hope. The Xenonites sent messages of thanks. Even the Galactic Council, watching from afar, was impressed. But the team's joy was short-lived. Using so much power had drained the Hope's engines. They were stranded in space, too far from Earth for rescue. The Xenonites offered to help, but their ships were too slow. It would take months to reach Earth. The team's food and air would run out long before then. Just when things looked hopeless, they received a message. It was from the Galactic Council's ship. They were coming to help. Within hours, the massive Council ship arrived. They brought the tired heroes aboard, treating them with respect and admiration. On the journey back to Earth, the Council members talked with the humans and Zephyrians. They were amazed by their bravery and teamwork. The Intellite Council member summed it up best. "We judged you too quickly. Separately, you were unremarkable. But together, you've become something extraordinary." Perhaps this is a lesson for all of us in the galaxy. As Earth came into view, the team knew things would never be the same. They had not only saved a planet, but might have changed the course of galactic history. The real challenge was just beginning. How would Earth handle its new role in the galaxy? Only time would tell. 5 years had passed since the Xenon rescue mission. Earth was a very different place now. The planet had become a shining example of cooperation in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had welcomed Earth as a full member. Humans and Zephyrians now had a voice in galactic matters. Their unique partnership fascinated other alien races. Earth itself had changed too. Cities now had tall, shimmering buildings designed by human and Zephyrian architects. Flying cars, long a dream of humans, were now common thanks to Zephyrian telekinesis technology. But the biggest changes were in how people lived and worked together. Mixed human-Zephyrian families were common. Children of both species played together in parks and studied side by side in schools. The rest of the galaxy had taken notice. Many planets now wanted to learn from Earth. They sent students and diplomats to see how humans and Zephyrians worked together. One sunny day, a special ceremony was held in New York. It was the opening of the Galactic University of Earth. This new school would teach students from all over the galaxy about cooperation and understanding between different species. At the ceremony, Amara, now the president of Earth's United Nations, stood with Zeph, the Zephyrian leader. They watched as students from 100 different planets filed into the university. Amara smiled at Zeph. "Did you ever imagine this when you first came to Earth?" Zeph shook his head, his large eyes shining. "Never. We were just hoping for a place to survive. Instead, we found a home and a future." As they spoke, a group of young Zephyrians demonstrated their telekinesis skills, making colorful balls dance in the air. Nearby, human students showed off new translation devices that could instantly turn any alien language into understandable speech. But it wasn't all easy. Some planets still didn't trust the Earth Alliance. They thought humans and Zephyrians were becoming too powerful. There were even rumors of a group called the Purists who wanted to keep all alien races separate. Despite these challenges, Earth continued to make progress. Their scientists made breakthroughs in medicine that helped cure diseases across the galaxy. Their diplomats helped solve conflicts between other alien races. One of the biggest changes was in space exploration. Human determination combined with Zephyrian telekinesis made them excellent at colonizing new planets. They started terraforming worlds that other races thought were impossible to live on. As Earth's influence grew, so did its responsibilities. They were often called to help with galactic emergencies. From stopping space pirates to rescuing ships lost in cosmic storms, Earth's teams were always ready to help. On the 5th anniversary of the Shunned mission, a grand celebration was held. Representatives from every known alien race attended. The Galactic Council presented Earth with a special award for outstanding contribution to galactic peace and progress. During the ceremony, Refuge, the young scientist who had spoken to the Council years ago, gave a speech. He was now the head of Earth's new Department of Galactic Affairs. 5 years ago, we were strangers in the galaxy, Refuge said. Today, we are friends to all. We've learned that our differences make us stronger when we work together. The lesson of Earth and the Zephyrians is simple. There is no such thing as a weak or useless people. Every species has something valuable to offer. His words were met with thunderous applause from the gathered aliens. Even the Chronosian council member, once so doubtful of Earth, nodded in approval. As the celebration continued, Amara and Zeph stepped away for a quiet moment. They looked up at the stars, visible even in the daytime thanks to new Zephyrian atmospheric technology. "What do you think the future holds?" Amara asked. Zeph was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think we've only just begun. There are still so many stars out there, so many worlds to discover. And now, thanks to our friendship, we can face whatever we find together." Amara nodded, smiling. As they watched, a new group of ships took off from the nearby spaceport, heading out to explore unknown parts of the galaxy. Each ship carried a crew of humans and Zephyrians, ready to face new adventures. The story of Earth and the Zephyrians was far from over. In fact, it seemed like it was just beginning. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was a good thing.